Captain's log 05/03/26. So I've noticed something kind of strange about guys. Um, and that is if a man doesn't have something to fix or build or work on, he kind of starts to fall apart. And the weird thing is nobody really talks about this. Um, but once you see it, you can't really unsee it. And I think it really rings true. Um, the way that guys like bond and the way that guys kind of hang out. You don't often just go and, I mean, sometimes you go and chill and talk, but often when you're talking, you're kind of like working out the world's problems. And in some way, you're still like fixing, maybe theoretically fixing something. But I mean, often for the longest time, even in history, like guys, they would go on hunts and build shelters and all those things, and then they kind of that's kind of how we would bond. And I think that that kind of explains a lot of what's going on in modern society. And when we don't have that, like, that bonding together, and we don't have the ability to work on stuff even individually, like as a man, I know for me, like, my living situation right now is a little different than before. I've moved into an apartment, and this is the first time I've ever lived in an apartment, and it's cool and it's good, and it's like it's got its you know benefits, because mostly because I don't have to shovel the driveway and I don't have to like maintain certain things, and it's convenient basically. But I also don't have like a shop and things to work on. And I noticed that, like, that almost like that yearn for that, you get a little stir crazy. Now, personally, I'm building things all day at work. I mean, I get paid to do that, so I'm pretty good at it, right? So, but I also have that like creative bone, and I also have the urge to do other things and work on other different projects. Um, so it's funny because my truck has has broken down. Excuse me. Um, it's not like it's not totally effed, but I'm in the process of kind of guess and check, figure out what's going on with it, and in some way, like, you get this little kind of rush, and I'm googling all the things in YouTube and all that, and I'm going on other people's YouTube channel, and I'm like watching them fix things, and I end up going down this rabbit hole of watching them work on their own projects that have nothing to do with, like, absolutely nothing to do with my truck. So uh but I don't know, something ticks inside you and you're just like, oh yeah, I like that, that's cool. And you really kind of connect with that. And I think most guys kind of have that in some way. It might not be vehicles, it might not be building stuff. It could be something completely different. A lot of guys like hunting, things like that, and it's like this primal thing. And I think that's like, it's so true, and we kind of forget about these things, and the way that men like bond, and the way that we hang out is totally different than how women do. And in modern life we can isolate ourselves a lot, and you can, you know it's good to hang out with, if you have a wife or a girlfriend or whatever. uh, Obviously you want to spend time with them, and you get something out of that that you don't get out of hanging out with the boys, obviously. um, but it's also, you also need that that men's time, right? And there's a few different things, like there's a few different topics in that I want to get into later. For instance, like we people talk about third spaces sometimes, um, but people don't really talk about like gendered third spaces. Which, if you don't have male only spaces, every male only space gets taken over by women because we live in a gynocentric society, right? So like you can't have a men's only whatever club. You can't have a whatever because that's sexist. But it's a bunch of bullshit because if women wanted their own space, then they can. And the only reason that they want the men's space is because it looks better because men hang out that way and get something out of it. So like obviously it's going to look cooler and better and whatever that these guys are doing that because that's just how men get together. And they need that and it's missing in society right now. So anyways, that's like a totally other topic that's going to be, I'm definitely going to talk about that coming up because that's huge. And it's like I maybe need to go fairly in depth on that to explain like why it's important and what the like what the implications happen of that are happening with that being destroyed, like those third spaces being destroyed. So anyways, totally different topic, but there's that. There's also male bonding with through sports and all these things where guys need this, like, you need to like do something. Sometimes like men don't like hang out together and just chill very often. Either they're like, even when they're chilling, they're playing video games and they're trying to beat whatever. They're, like I said, they're talking about how to fix the world or theoretical problems if they're just chilling. Sometimes they're, drinking beers by the fire, but often they're cooking and doing whatever. But when men really bond, like, it's usually around some sort of project. And it's funny, like, you don't really have to, it's funny how you can feel, you know, it sucks going to work sometimes. And I can imagine, like, in the corporate world, it's even worse. But you go and you're like, oh, I have to go do this shitty job again. But if you took like the same similar job or whatever, some other thing, and your buddy needed help with it, you'd be like, hell yeah, like grab a case of beer, let's do it. Like, and you're fired up because you want to go like hang out and do this project, and you have fun doing it. Like, I remember, I'm a licensed plumber. One of my best friends is also a licensed plumber. I've obviously a few really good friends who are plumbers, but this was a friend from childhood, and his brother is also one of my best friends, um, and had an issue at his house, and he needed a new water line brought in, and they could only dig so far with the machine to the house, and then there was stuff in the way they couldn't get the machine in, so we had to hand dig, the last whatever 10 feet or something. And when you think of it, like especially in Canada, we have to dig, past the frost line, which is in lots of places it's like 6 feet deep. So you're hand digging 6 feet and by 10 feet. And when you think about like doing that, it's like that would be like a shit day at work. Like if you had to go and do that at work, you'd be like, fuck this. But when you're with your buddies and you're just like you got the tunes blaring and you're just having a time and it's like the greatest thing ever. And yeah, you don't really think about that, right? Like that how important that is. Like you can think fondly on it, but people don't think of like the importance of like the actual like act of what you're doing. Um and I think it's always been that way, right? Like historically, I think that we've evolved in some way to enjoy that because of what it implicated. You know, whether you're building, building homes and shelters, farming the land, going out on a hunt and chasing down like a mammoth or something, and as a group you have to like work together and bond, and like you need like that's like the important stuff where your tribe kind of like gets stronger by working together. It could be fighting a war, it could be all these things, like learning things, and all that stuff was like a group effort, and it was things that like men went and did together. It wasn't like a mixed group. It was men going and doing this together, and it's kind of always been that way. The whole, again, hanging out with your girls and sometimes in mixed groups and stuff, it's cool and it's good, and that's important too, but it's a whole nother thing. Like that's a whole different thing, and we forget how important it is to have both, and we try to act like men and women are the same and hanging out is going to be the same, but it's just not. It's a totally different thing. That's why when you throw a woman in the mix in any of those things, and it's going to be different. It's just not the same. So they just bond differently, and that's okay. That's okay that it's okay to have that sometimes, and it's okay to bond with women and stuff and be friends and whatever. But it's just not the same, and you're never going to be as good. Uh, you know, it's never going to be the same thing. It's never going to be as deep a connection and all that. And most men's friendships are very like surface level, and women just don't understand that. How can you go and talk to your buddy and not know anything about, what do you mean you don't know how his kids are doing? What do you mean you don't know how whatever? I was like, yeah, but you know I learned all the intricacies of his diesel engine, right? Like I could tell you whatever, and they just like people wouldn't like women wouldn't understand like how the hell are you even friends with this person? It's like, yeah, but that's not what our friendship is. Our friendship is like we can get together after 10 years and not skip a beat, and you know start working on something, and it's just the way guys are. And I was thinking about this, and it's like there's times where your job can suck as a tradesman and as a blue collar worker, but to be honest, I gotta say, like I'm pretty sure in a lot of ways tradesmen are happier than people who work in an office, and it is one of the reasons that like I love doing the type of work that I do, because there's like problems to solve, tangible physical problems to solve, and like normally a group effort in some way, and sometimes you're by yourself, but that's cool too. And you take this stuff, and like at the end of the day I see the pipes that I put in the air. I see the systems. I've turned water on to the systems that I'm doing, all kinds of things, like my truck. Like I physically see the difference when I change the parts and run it, and I'm like, okay, well, that was the fix, or no, that didn't work, I have to try something else. And it's not like you know bullshit meetings and stuff. I mean, we have bullshit meetings all the time too, but we're not going and just like talking about some chart and trying to be politically correct and all this stuff, right? um I think that a lot of people who work in, like a lot of dudes who work in offices kind of yearn for that, which is why I think it's like super important for people, for like guys to have hobbies outside of work, um, and have friends in different, in different categories, right? Like have friends who do blue collar work, have friends who do office work for other things, right? And try to help each other out, right? Because it's it's super important. It's super important to have that outlet in some way, right? And I think because I really do think like men are wired that way to problem solve and to diagnose and repair and build and improve things. And like, it's funny, if you've ever been in a long-term relationship, especially if you have like, you know if you're with a feminine woman, you see like these like stark differences sometimes, if you care to notice. And one of the things is like, it's talked about a lot actually on the internet now, but if you look in your own relationships, sometimes you'll see like women will sometimes tell you their problems, and not because they want you to help them or anything. They just want to like talk. Guys don't really just like talk, right? Like, guys will be like, this is my issue, this is the problem I'm having, and then guy number two says, okay, well, I've gathered that information, this is what I think your solution should be, or this is how I think, like, whatever, or this is my input that I've had for whatever experience that has helped me. And then you're like, oh, okay, let me try that and get back to you, or let me whatever. So it's like problem problem solving, experiment, solution, maybe, and then get back and like, yep, that worked. And with women, they'll tell you something, and like, if you jump into the problem solving, right away, like, you screwed up, right? Because they're gonna be like, I don't want you to like, it's not about the problem, it's not about the whatever. I just want you to listen to me and validate my feelings. It's the whole nail in the head thing. I don't know if you've seen that video, but that one's that one's pretty good. But there's a huge difference, right? Men and women are just different. It is what it is. But yeah, guys have that, like, you don't have to think about it when when there's a problem. Guys tend to jump into problem solving, and it's a good thing. It's like, that's a feature, not a bug. That's why the world works the way, that's why we have working societies, because men are around to problem solve, or else there would be nothing. um, and yeah, there's a lot of you get a lot out of it as an individual, working on projects at home. I know I used to, like, when I had the space, I worked on all kinds of shit, like anything. I'd work on my vehicles. I liked building things, like, in the garden or whatever, out of wood and different things like that. Or I would I got into, like, at one point I really got into or like fixing, like, I would go and buy antique tools, like old antique tools, 100-year-old, you know, uh, whatever. Like, I built I got a 100-year-old drill press, an Atlas drill press, that I took apart, like, every little piece I took apart. I cleaned every little piece. I used rust remover. Like, I scrubbed every little piece. I fixed what I could. I ordered new parts, what I couldn't fix. Like, I scoured the internet to find shit on eBay for these like 100-year-old parts, and meticulously put this thing back together, new paint job, everything. And it's like one of my pride and joys, because like, it was like such a random, like, randomly went down a rabbit hole about fixing things and these old machines and how beautiful they were. Got my hands on some of them and started fixing them, and like, they're just like my pride and joy, these tools that I have. And I just loved working, and people would come, like, other dudes would come, you know and visit the place and see me working on the, hey, like, hey, yeah, come over, have a a soda pop. We'll hang out, and they come over, and I'll be in the garage when you get here. Just show up. And your buddies come over, or your whatever, your father-in-law, whoever comes over, and you're working on something. I'll be working on the tools there. And hey, what are you working on? What's that? And like, it's this whole thing, and the hours fly by, and you're just like putzing around on working on that, and it's just the greatest time ever. And you just like, what else do you want to do, right? And you gain this like brotherhood from shared work in some ways. Men need like men need some sort of problem to solve to bond in some way too, and you see that clearly in how they train the army and things like that. But you see it very clearly in competitive sports. The better teams are like teams who've gained that ability to like problem solve and work on things together as a team. Um, Sometimes they're not the most athletic teams. Sometimes they're not the most talented teams. Sometimes they're just the teams that like, for some reason, they connect, and they are really good at just problem solving and figuring out the work together, and like they just know their roles. And guys find like hierarchies really easy to figure out and things like that, and they just get it. And it's the same thing, it's the same thing in your work, and for whether you're working on a job site or military or whatever you're doing, firefighting, whatever. And like, men don't find brotherhood by sitting around and like talking about their feelings. They find it from like working and solving problems. That doesn't mean that they're not going to talk, and it doesn't mean that they're not going to like help each other out when there's shit going on. But like, this is controversial, but I'm going to put it out there. Like, guys don't need therapy. Anybody who tells you like guys need therapy, they're they're dead wrong. They just don't understand uh, human nature. They don't understand how guys figure things out. It's another symptom of like the world we live in, the gynocentric world that we live in. Guys need buddies who like, make jokes and take the heat off of things, problem solve, and have shared experiences. So, and that's often through problem solving and working on things. So like, humor can wash a lot of the hurt away. And there's things that like, yes, men can shove down deep inside and like put away, and then it boils out later. But when you have like that bond and you get that brotherhood, and you somehow like, as long as you're able to continue that and curate it, then basically like you can push all that other stuff aside. It's There's a difference between like thinking like, oh well, you're not dealing with it and it's just gonna like hurt you later, versus like, hey, I know this thing, like my buddy's got my back, we've talked about it, he knows about it, we have this shared thing, he's told me about bad shit that's happened to him, and we've had jokes about it and all these things, and it's not scary anymore, and it's not hurtful anymore, and we can put this aside, and we might think about it later, but not in the same way that we think about it when it really hurt, and or when it really mattered. So like, you can put a lot of that stuff to the side and just get rid of it, and like, it's not, you don't get that in therapy. It's not the same thing. There's things that obviously people have to go to like therapy for that are mental problems. Like if you have like an actual mental diagnosis, I'm not don't take my advice on any of this stuff. I'm not a doctor. But I'm just saying from like experience of like, the general dude, go talk to your buddies and see if you feel better and go do something. Cause yeah, like, your girlfriend leaving, it doesn't mean anything after you hang out with your buddies for a while and do some cool shit, and yeah, you'll be fine. But yeah, don't take my advice because I'm not a doctor. Fuck. Yeah, so I just like dudes these days are very much in their feels and not enough in their reels. And by that I mean just like we're trying to be Rollo Tomasi puts as we're raised to be defective girls, and that's very true. We try to like mold ourselves like we're a square peg trying to fit into a round hole, and trying to be in this like society that like we think that we have to do whatever, and then it's gonna be better for us. And then like you think of historically how dudes were, and you know how all this was created. It wasn't by sitting around talking about our feelings, and like it wasn't trying to be comfortable and all these things. My very favorite book is, actually, I might have it here. It's I don't know where I put it. Gates of Fire. Anyways, it's about it's the movie 300. That's what that movie was based on, and it's about the Spartans, and they talk about like the training and how they lived, and like the type of life that they lived. And there's so much like good stuff in that book that I want to cover, because it's like, I'm definitely like 100% I'm going to do a log on that, because there's so many lessons in there about like how men get together and overcome challenges, and the type of life that they like deem worthy, and that they deemed worthy back then. you know like we don't have that. We don't get up and like have this giant horde of whatever Persians to face. We have Netflix and TikTok and like whatever, like Instagram, or like and what I like our addictions and stuff, and like all the things that we some dudes have drugs, and some dudes have porn addictions, and all these things, and like there's stuff to overcome. And it doesn't make you less of a man if you have that stuff. Obviously, like these are problems. These are the modern day problems that like nobody back in the day had to deal with. Like they didn't have any of these things, and we have to learn how to deal with it. But you definitely don't deal with it by men aren't going to deal with this stuff by using the solutions that are given in the type of society we have today. That is why the problems are getting worse and not better, because we're trying to fit a square peg in a round hole, and we're trying to do the like we're trying to live as defective women instead of actually going out and like, how would a man like how are men supposed to solve this? What's good for us? And that's it's the reason like so many dudes feel like empty and frustrated and angry, and like they're like the feelings that you know we have this lie that we're told that, hey, you should be in touch with your feelings, and you should learn to express yourself, et cetera, et cetera, and all this bullshit that we get from society telling us this stuff. And you know what feelings guys get angry, guys get frustrated, guys get the empty feeling. And look at how they lash out when they're told to like, hey, like delve into your feelings and all, and all these things, and look at how they lash out. Look at the men, look at every single one of the men who've committed, you know, whatever it is, like the crimes and the mass shootings and school shootings, and it's sad, and it's so sad that these things happen, and they're so preventable. And you look at like why these things happen, and you know, everybody, oh, it's a gun problem, it's this problem, it's a that problem. Well, those are just tools. You know, tools don't have, they don't just get up and, you know, go off by themselves. There's got to be somebody behind that, and there's a mind behind that. And the mind is the thing that's sick. And the virus is the society telling this young man, or and it's always young men, it's always men who are confused in some way, and telling them like, hey, you're just a defective woman, like you need to be a better woman. And it's like, no, you're a man, be a man. Like, you need you need fathers in the house to teach us. You need this stuff. Again, these are way deeper topics I'm gonna have to get into on other videos, because this video is not about that. But like, it seems so obvious sometimes to me, and I'm sure to many people, that like the problem's not what we're saying, because it just keeps getting worse. If it was, it would be getting better right now. And we need to stop living like that. Dudes need to go out and fix things, and like help each other fix things, and hang out that way, and you know, have a beer together, and all those things, and like bond that way, and find friends that do that, and like, you know, offer your help. Like, what's one evening out of your week, or what's a couple evenings, or what's, you know, whatever, like the things you get out of it, the things you learn. And like imagine you had a buddy who's working on a truck, and you can go and give him a hand, and maybe you get a free beer out of it, or maybe you get like pizza or something, right? Or maybe you're just there, and the knowledge that you're going to get, like imagine what you learn from working on that, and then working together on that, and like the bond that you get out of that. And you might argue, and you might like, you might one night you might hate each other, but like you're it's not going to be, it's not going to be a big deal. You're going to get over it like right away. You'll be like, well, we still have to fix this damn thing, so you know, come on back, let's let's figure it out, right? And guys just get over it, right? We're like so quick. I know when I was a little kid, like my best buddy, like first thing we did, we fought. I feel like every young man, like their best friend, you know, he moved away when I was like young anyways, but uh, yeah, you get in like fights, fist fights and shit and whatever with like, and you end up being like best friends with them. So that's it's just a funny thing about dudes, right? But yeah, anyways, this don't want to go for too long tonight, but yeah, in the end, like, men need something to build, because if a man isn't building something, eventually he starts breaking things, and it's just the way it is. So that's it for tonight. Delta out.